Hello and welcome to the top 4 round of the Hyogo Championships here on the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious. We've got the top 4 round, and this is the top 8 deck distribution. We'll see the top 4 in a second. It looks like it's going to be 3 black yellow Luffys and 1 Bonney. So 4 black yellow Luffys entered into the top 16, the most populous deck. 3 of them, if you couldn't read from the previous one there on the left side, 3 black yellow Luffys made the top 8 and all 3 advanced into the top 4. So no matter what, we're going to have at least a black yellow Luffy in the finals, and we're going to see here if the Bonney can get past the black yellow Luffy. I think if I had to take a guess, I don't know the matchup. You know the matchup by the title and thumbnail, but I would assume that they're probably going to play the Bonney. And editor, flash forward to the Bonney. Aha, I was right. It is the Bonney. So Bonney traditionally having a good matchup against black yellow Luffy. So we're going to see. I do think that Bonney was kind of the secret play heading into this tournament. I think it was a pretty strong pick, right? With all the players, you know, in the triangular rotation we have in the meta, kind of morphing around to black yellow Luffy. Bonney also gets an inherent boost because of that. So Bonney having that resting anything effect, right? If it has that one Dawn open on the opponent's attack, is so strong within the game right now. It's arguably the best green deck that we have at this point in OP09 before OP10 comes out. Just want to make it clear as well, I am not the official live stream or broadcast of it. I'm actually watching the VOD of it. So if you want to watch the official live stream and hear it for yourself, or maybe see it for yourself, you don't want to hear me talk, feel free to click the link in the description below. I've got that there. But for those of you that want to stay, consider like, comment, subscribing, all that jazz, and a bag of chips, as we're on our way to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. But also in the next tournament that's happening, the Aichi Championships, I'm going to be giving away one of the Dueling Guard mats that I have. Dueling Guard sending me a whole bunch of mats, and so I'm going to give one away to you. Thank you so much to Dueling Guard as well. So be on the lookout for that if you want into it. I have a whole bunch that the winner is going to be able to choose from One Piece to Dragon Ball to, I think, even not a card game related, like just regular anime. But anyways, talking about the matchup, Bonney being able to rest a ton of different characters holds a lot of value when you talk about black yellow Luffy, right? Black yellow Luffy prides itself on looping different things like the 5-cost blocker sabos, right? Being able to not only hand filter, but also protect the entire board from KO effects, as well as just cycling blockers, consistently having blockers on the field to make you a 9,000 power leader. The Bonney, however, can rest anything on the opponent's attack, and it stays rested going back into the Bonney's turn, but also has different effects of just resting characters during its offensive phase, like Hody Jones, one of the best cards in the game. We look at the starting hands, though, of these players. Starting off with the black yellow Luffy, got a 3 Brothers Bond and a Garp Searcher, so a couple different searching options to find you a couple different cards, as well as 2 Egghead OP07 Luffys that will be able to KO characters throughout the game. Also has a blocker Sabo, one of the cards that I was mentioning earlier, a very important card in this deck. Does have one of them, so unless it gets rested, will have a lot of value in this game. The Bonney doing the mulligan. We'll see what they get off of this mulligan. Looks like they've got 2-cost killer, a card that has really resurged in Bonney decks as of late. 2Ks in Scratchman Apu, and in Izo, a Hody Jones right there, and then also a Film Shank. So it feels like kind of an awkward hand. You really want to see Cavendish. You want to see things like Basil Hawkins, things of that nature, especially so that middle ground area after kind of the first turn, you're left in a little bit of a loop. You can't really develop your board, right? So could be a tough one for Bonney if I were to say, but we go in just 1 Dawn and going right away using that Garp, getting that body on the field. Is going to go ahead and look at the top 5, has to find a Sabo, Luffy, or Ace, and has a couple different options. You see a couple baby Sabos in there and a big Luffy. This list playing a 1-legged toy soldier, an interesting 2K in this deck is kind of nice and has synergies with some of your stuff like that Egghead Luffy that I talked about to be able to KO some of the more upper level characters right on the field. So Bonney now going into the 2 Dawn turn just goes ahead and pass, does not opt to play the killer down as we go into 3 Dawn turn for the Luffy. The Black Yellow Luffy finding that 5-drop Luffy that does the awakening tactic, right? Does the power up in the field. Very, very good to find, especially against this Bonney right here. So we're going to see how it plays out. Going to be going ahead, resting that Garb, taking that 8,000 power swing. Only finds a 2k Ezo, so you love the counter, but the counter can only help you for so long. Gets the Rosinante, might go ahead and play like a killer Rosinante combo at this point after swinging 5 at this Garp. Not really going to be swinging a life, going to have to force this Luffy to take their own life, right? Try to do their own effects to awaken, which is why that 5-drop Luffy in the hand that I mentioned earlier is so good at this point. Is going to be able to activate your Egghead Luffys, right? To be able to pop different characters once you get yourself down to 2 life. And the Bonney right now really thinking about what they want to do. If they go ahead and play the Rosinante killer combo, they wouldn't have any Dawn opens, so just opts for the 1 killer. Says, you know what, you're probably not going to be able to KO this outside of a swing. I can go ahead, just take a block potentially instead of losing out on a body. This Black Yellow Luffy player top decking in Ace has plenty of the 5 costs in hand. Now at a 5 Dawn turn, he's just going to be swinging this 5 and then going ahead and playing one of the characters on the field. The thing is about this, if you don't block now with this, playing that 5-drop is going to be able to basically guarantee that they're going to pop that guy next turn. So uses the 2k out of that one to get out of the swing. And if I was the Bonney or the Black Yellow Luffy right now, I'd go ahead, take that 5 cost and go ahead, use its effect, right? Get you back down to 3 life and draw a card on that effect. That way, in the next turn, the killer is going to be on the field. You can use that Egghead Luffy to go ahead and pop it, or maybe use some other effects, right? Finding a Gecko on that draw. Finding the Gecko is one of the harder parts of this deck, right? Gecko being a non-searchable card, right? In the 3 Brothers Bond package, you have to naturally draw into it. So finding it now is huge for this Black Yellow Luffy player. Definitely in the driver's seat as the Bonney just kind of continues to not draw any cards that are really worth of value at this point. At 6 Dawn, you're just stuck right now. And so playing that Rosinante right there, we'll see if they attach any Dawn and swing, and they're just going to pass with 4 Dawn up, not really doing anything at this point. And the Black Yellow Luffy, we'll see if they continue to run. Keeps finding the combos for the babies, now having a baby ace on that draw. Does have to think about, at least at this point, if they do decide to swing with one of these 2 characters, right? It's going to leave their Monkey D. Luffy 5 cost susceptible for an attack in the coming turn. So you do have to be a little bit wary of that. You can use the leader or you can use the Luffy effect, right? That 5 cost Luffy to be able to get you down to, 2 life, and is going to go ahead, use that effect, finds a Kuzan off of that draw, gets a little baby Sabo in the discard. So getting a baby Sabo in the discard, actually not that bad, because if you get to a point where they're not swinging at your characters or leader, right, you're going to be able to at least Gecko for that guy on there to be able to go in and synergize with your effects. So after using that 8,000 power swing, Bonney using the leader effect to rest the Luffy, just continues to keep going bad, right? Killer off of the life, really killing him at this point. But anyways, still plenty of Dawn left on 7. We'll see if they decide to play anything. Has a couple different options, right? You could use that ace, get rushed. The Bonney not really doing anything, so you can go ahead and apply a lot of pressure, or you can go ahead, play that Egghead Luffy and pop one of those, but decides to go a little bit more defensive, just does some cycling, uses that Sabo to draw 2 and trash 2, says, you know what? If you go in with like an all-out swing on this Luffy character, right, this 5 cost Luffy that I have on the field, I'm probably going to be able to either block or counter out of it at this point. So especially because if a Hody Jones comes down, right, and rests the blocker, the Luffy still stays at 8,000 power through your opponent's turn. So it's just a quick little 1-2k to get out of that swing. No 2ks in the hand though, even after that draw. Really thinking about what they want to do with the discard on this. Is thinking about the Kuzan. The Kuzan is something that you don't need at this point. Kuzan's kind of either like an on curve or maybe coming through Gecko potentially if you're not at 0 life yet. So it looks like pitching the Kuzan and Ace off of this. I don't hate this play. They're non-counter cards in your hand. They don't really help you out too much, and you're probably going to use one of these two Dawn left to use for the Three Brothers Bond event card that you have, right? Do a little bit of searching instead of just kind of holding the Dawn up, but decides, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it at this point. Maybe says, I don't want to accidentally bottom deck some really important cards based on the other searches that I've done. So I'm just going to wait, be patient, and naturally draw into them, right? The Bonney drawing another Shanks off of the top deck. They do have a 10-drop Luffy, so their big bodies are nice, right? But just not having like any Cavendish on the field, not having any Hawkins on the field at this point is just so tough for the deck right now. So really a tough spot. The only play that you have is like Hody Jones right now. And so do you go ahead, is going to play that Hody Jones. You do have to rest 7 Dawn and also take a life for that effect. Is going to go ahead, rest that blocker. Sabo, we'll see with that 1 Dawn, they only can match that Luffy, but decides to go for the Sabo instead. The Sabo is a 6,000 power character, so it's a little bit harder to counter out of that one instead of just a quick 1k to save the Luffy. So kind of utilizing resources at this point. But the black yellow Luffy really in the driver's seat at this point, is at 9 Dawn right now, so does have a little bit to work with in the instance of the cards that they have. Doesn't have another way to like get down to 0 at this point, which is kind of the only thing that you're missing right now. You can use that Luffy effect, go down to 1, right? But 1's kind of like a crucial territory when you're facing against a lot of decks, right? Especially when there's something like Hody Jones that is available in the Bonney deck, right? A couple different swings, especially a Hody Jones when you're at 1 life, could be disastrous at some points because you're only a 5,000 power leader, right? You haven't done any sort of evolving or awakening effects to get you up to 7, 9, really kind of comfortable on the defense with the slew of 1Ks that you have. Because remember, this Black Yellow Luffy does not have any 2K, so although it looks like the Black Yellow Luffy is very much in the driver's seat, especially with a punishing deck like Black Yellow Luffy, it could spell disaster if you're not careful. So on this Three Brothers Bond does find a couple different options that they can use. I see a baby Ace in there as well as a Sabo blocker. No playset of manga Sabos. Usually when we see a manga Sabo in a deck, we see a whole playset of them because the prices of Japan cards and English cards are vastly different if you've seen my Twitter lately. But anyways, goes ahead, grabs the Ace right there. So maybe thinking about in some of the stretches of the game, really moving around with the Ace. So still 8 Dawn left in this turn. Is maybe thinking about using that leader effect, like I mentioned. Is just going to go ahead, use the 8 to go in and play the Garp and Kuzan. So the Kuzan is going to go ahead and draw one, finds another Kuzan. Unfortunately, usually I think that is correct to go Kuzan and then Garp search. But it's just unfortunate that the one that you got is like no counter on it, not really much to work with, but could be helpful, you know, in the next turn if they hold you at 2 life at this stage. Does find some options. I see that 5 cost Luffy right there might be something that they're eyeing up. It is going to go ahead, put that in the hand. Have they seen any baby Luffys at this point? I'm not sure they have. And it's just going to pass off the turn, no swinging. Doesn't want that Luffy to get rested. Doesn't use the awakening effect either at this point. And so now we move into Bonney's 10 Dawn turn. Now finds a Cavendish a little bit late, but especially because nothing is rested, right? You didn't swing to get your leader rested. You didn't swing to get Gecko or the Awakening Luffy rested, the 10 drop Doflamingo that they've got in hand really can only freeze the Garp, so you've really nullified a potential option for them to play on this turn. Goes ahead and plays a Cavendish, and with this Cavendish, especially with now a Basil Hawkins in hand, does get that refresh effect from the Cavendish, and now you get to play that Hawkins down on the field and still have 1 Dawn left over on that 11 Dawn play. Very nice recovery at this point. Definitely, like, that was pretty much what I would say is like the final turn. Like, if you didn't get to do something like that on this turn, it was pretty much over for you at that point. Still not in a great spot, right? Because you're only at 2 life right now, but you're in a much better position than where you were a turn ago. So we'll see how the Black Eel Luffy decides to continue attacking in this. I think drew in another 5-cost Luffy from the starter deck. We'll see if they decide to do anything. Does have a Kuzan to be able to -4 something on the field, and with a bunch of Dawn, right, could use that Egghead Luffy. So goes ahead, uses that Awakening effect on the Luffy to put a baby Luffy in trash. Gonna be nice if you find another Gecko to get that guy back, but we'll see what they decide to do with the rest of this Dawn right here. Putting themselves at 1 life right now. Looks like that potentially they might be trying to awaken, may play like another 5-cost Luffy and use the effect again to go down to 0. If you attach 2 Dawn though, you would only have 3 Dawn left, so you could only become a 7k leader at that point in terms of your using leader effect to put cards in life and then going in with the baby, one of the babies that you've got in hand. Oh, they do have a baby Luffy in hand, my apologies. It's hard with the alternate arts to see which one is which, but is going to start off by swinging 7 potentially with Kuzan. So swinging 7,000 power. That Luffy at the bottom of their character area is 8,000, and the Gecko being 9 is going to go ahead. I don't know exactly what they -4 on that when attacking. It might be something like Cavendish at this point, but is going to go ahead, use the leader effect, rest that Gecko. That is the biggest base character on the field for the Black Eel Luffy at this point. And we're going to see the killer block right now. I'm going to utilize one of those blockers. Doesn't really want to pitch any of these cards at this point. Not sure how much swinging the Black Eel Luffy is going to do. And here comes in the Luffy. It looks like maybe thinking about attaching some Dawn with it right now. Is going to go ahead, swing 8,000 and block with the Cavendish alongside a 2k. So Cavendish being a 7,000 power character, going to be a nice block right there. You don't want to block with the Rosinante yet because of the possibility of the Egghead Luffy, right? That Rosinante being able to save the different characters that you've got on the field. And so is going to go ahead, use the Hiyori, go in and grab that life, going to put something else. And this is going to be a nice combo that you're going to be able to utilize, right? With 6 Dawn left, you're going to be able to go to 9,000 power as well as use the leader effect. So is going to play the first baby down, is going to go ahead, use that baby effect to play the Luffy. We'll see if they decide to pop anything at this point. Is going to go ahead, attempt to pop the Cavendish. The Cavendish is going to go through, and now we'll see what they use off of the leader effect. Could go in and try to do another Luffy. Right now, you've got some of the Luffys in hand, so using the leader effect, you can pitch something like the Three Brothers Bond that you have in there. It's not a counter card, it's not a 2k even, so you could get rid of it. Or maybe the Kuzan that you have in hand. Kuzan might have a little bit more value. You go ahead, put one of those 5-cost Luffys in life, maybe the Ace as well, or the Sabo. The Sabo would apply some pressure, right? As a quick 7,000 power swing, you do have that baby Ace in hand. I think 2 of them to be exact. So ends up using the Ace Sabo combo. Thinking about the ordering, looks like that they're going to be playing one of them. Looks like it's going to be that Sabo. Going to kind of force a Hody Jones on this turn instead of a Doflamingo, which is a very interesting strategy, right? I think at this point in the game, you don't really mind too much the Hody Jones, because the Hody Jones as a 9,000 power character is going to take up most of your opponent's Dawn in this game. And so you're going to have things that, one, are not only not frozen, but also you're going to have only a little bit of counter that you have to do in terms of being able to stave away the different attacks that are on field. After this, Sabo does draw into a Gecko and a, I think, another blocker Sabo, so goes ahead and pitches the Kuzan and the baby ace. The swing 11,000 power is going to block with the Rosinante, and you like having that baby ace in the trash right now, because with that other Gecko in hand, you're going to be able to bring that ace back, right? I think you have multiple, I think you have one more ace in the trash at this point right now. He's going to go ahead, swing 5,000 at the Kuzan right here. Going to force either a block or a 1K, and is going to take the KO. Just going to let it happen. Kuzan kind of did its job in that turn, took out the Cavendish, and we're going to see what the Bonney decides to do. Remember, the Luffy leader is 9,000 power, so is going to go ahead with that Doflamingo, go in and freeze the 3 that are rested right now, the Luffy leader, Gecko, and the 5-drop Luffy. So we'll see what they, oh nope, that's frozen right there. Did not decide to swing with anything else. You had no more Dawn, so you couldn't go ahead and reach up to the Luffy. You kind of want to keep the Hody Jones active anyways for a potential turn. What you're trying to do right now is you're trying to get like an all-in play with these big characters that you have, right? And so is at a full 10 Dawn, finds a 3rd Gecko in their hand, I believe. So with 3 Geckos available, you're going to be able to cycle through for sure these babies and whatnot, maybe even cycle through the Geckos in a sense. There's no up Dawn right now, so nothing is going to get rested off of your swing. So plays that Gecko down, is going to go ahead, grab a Sabo and an ace. I think the 2 targets that you grab off of this or take off the field, yep, that Luffy and Hiyori. Hiyori not really doing anything for you, and if they continue to play Doflamingos, it's going to be that Luffy that keeps getting frozen. So does start out with that ace, going to be a nice 7,000 power swing coming in for that guy. Attaches to, goes in and uses leader effect. Remember, the leader effect is a 2 Dawn activate main, so even if you're frozen, right, as a rested character, you're still going to be able to use that effect. So is going to go in, thinking about putting a Sabo and Egghead Luffy in there, is going to put the 5-drop. And I do like the 5-drop play, right? You're going to leave 1 in the life, and it's going to be 1 at this stage of the game that you maybe don't necessarily care about if it gets bottom deck. So does opt for that. On the Sabo draw, does find a 2K Flampe, so starting to gather a little bit of 2Ks. Does pitch a Sabo and I think another 1K in the hand right there. So with that 7,000 power swing, is going to go ahead and block with the Cavendish and a 2K, survives out of that turn, and now we move into the next one. Finds a Cavendish, but the thing is, you need to start playing these big bodies, right? And the Cavendish is not really going to help you too much unless you combo it with that Hody Jones, which you wouldn't have any Dawn left over for the leader effect coming in. Maybe is still thinking about that play anyways on this turn. You would go down to 1 life, which is kind of scary, but you would be able to at least apply some pressure in a future turn because you would have another 8,000 power character on the field. But instead decides to swing 7 at the ace, says I'm going to go ahead, swing this one here, trying to fetch the KO or maybe block potentially, and is going to go ahead, use that Cavendish, is going to refresh 2 Dawn to stay at 5, and we'll see what they do with the 5 or 4. Does have 3 Dawn sectioned off and 2, maybe thinking about playing the killer on this turn, is going to attach 1 to the Hody, swing 9,000 power at either Gecko or the leader. The Gecko or leader, whichever one, is just going to either be a 1K counter or a block, and opting for the block on this one. The Doflamingo, a 10,000 power character, a little bit bigger, is going to go in now and opt to swing. I think you can't wait anymore if you're the Bonney at this point. I think you need to start swinging, need to start being aggressive, right? Dwindle down the hand or force them to run out of ways to continuously cycle these Sabos and these characters. Starts out with an 11,000 power swing, so is just going to go ahead and block right there, and the killer going to come down, the killer going to come down and end the turn with 1 open, so maybe something gets to be rested. The good news is one of these geckos will be rested, but you're still in a really tough spot. You've had to pitch all your 2Ks in order to continuously survive at this point, and so you've only got 2K worth of counter left in your hand with your life. So if these geckos get to start swinging, right, especially this 9,000 going at lead, you're gonna have to block in some specific spots. So he's going to have to think about what he wants to go ahead and rest. Probably going to be the leader. If I had to guess, right, leader usually swings 11,000 at this stage of the game. Goes ahead and does that. Another gecko swing could be coming in as well. Decides to take the life first, keep the blockers on the field, forcing them to maybe go in, and instead of going double Sabo, goes like Sabo Luffy, right? The egghead to be able to pop one of the killer on the field. So he's going to go ahead, block that 9,000 power swing on the gecko and get the killer and the leader effect going to be going off right now. So he's going to go ahead, play the gecko first to get those babies onto the field. Going to be a Sabo and Luffy. You do have to use that Luffy effect first and get that Luffy out of life before you use leader effect. So good job sequencing by this player. Is going to go ahead, put that Luffy to 8,000 power. Remember, you don't have to take a life if there is no life, right? You can still get that plus 2,000 power boost. If you don't have any life, you just don't get the card draw along with it. So if you saw that little motion that he made on the 5-cost Luffy, that's what that was. And so now at this point, he's going to be going in and using the leader effect, puts away one of the Luffys, and he's going to put out the same life that he had previously. Potentially going to put in at least a Sabo right here. Makes sense since he's got the Sabo baby, but goes ahead and puts the ace. I do like this play, right? Hasn't been able to get into or put the life that you've left out at the bottom of the deck. So having that ace there, if you're able to repeat that, is going to be nice with that ace in hand to be able to get an extra swing in and really pressure at this point. Because I think you're pretty close to being able to secure this game if you're the black yellow Luffy. So goes ahead and does a draw right now. And so now this Bonney going to have to be thinking with the 10 Dawn. Do you go in? Do you play another body? What body do you even play at this point? Got about 4.5 minutes left in this game before we hit overtime. Goes ahead and swings at 9,000 power. I forgot my thought that I had previously. Bonney, one of the few undefeated players in Swiss, was the number 2 seed coming into this one. The Black Hill Luffy had 8-1. You gotta think that the Bonney took down at least 1 or 2 Black Hill Luffys on their way to this spot within the top 4. Just unfortunate start to the game for him. But counters out of that one with a nice little 2K right there. Still has 9 Dawn left to go in this round. He's going to go ahead, round out the turn with the Shanks. Remember, the Cavendish does get to refresh, so you do get that 2 Dawn back. The Shanks not KOing anything, though, because of the Sabo. Remember that the Sabo has that blocker effect, right? Not only gets the blocker and on the draw too, but protects the entire board through your opponent's turn from KO effects. The Shanks with that on play is a KO effect. So just putting out a big body now at this point, and swing 11 with the Doflamingo is going to go ahead, block with that Sabo, and pass off the turn. The Black Hill Luffy now definitely in the driver's seat. 3 geckos on the field, and another Luffy that can swing 8,000 power with the ability to get another rush character at this point. He's going to go ahead, play that ace down, and with that is going to go ahead, unlock the ace from life. Going to put it in, use that Luffy effect, make him an 8, and now has 9,9,9,8,7 at this point on the field in terms of their swings without attaching and investing any Dawn. You know that no Gecko's coming out at least on this turn because the 2-drop baby was played, but now the Dawn is going to be distributed out and about, and with only 1 blocker on the field right in the Cavendish can only protect so much at this point, and the Luffy now being at a 7,000 power character. Before they swing with the ace potentially, though, is going to go in with the 8 on the Luffy. So decides with the 8 instead of potentially the 9, is going to go ahead, use the leader effect, and we'll see what they rest. Might be the Luffy leader. It looks like it is going to be that in case they go up and go up to 11 again on this turn. But it is just going to 2K out of that one to go up to 9. And now with only 1K counter in your hand, you have plenty of swings that you have to go around at this point. Swing 7 at lead right now with the ace is going to take the life. The Gecko coming in, swings 9. You do have that 1 blocker, so you don't want to invest everything there, but swings another 9 and cannot get around that. Wins the game. Luffy, it's going to be a mirror match of Black Yellow Luffy in the finals. Going to be nice because we haven't really seen that too much, I feel like, in a while, especially in the OP09 format. So going to be an exciting final. I think the Black Yellow Luffy mirror is very interesting because there's some curious things that go on in the kind of cat and mouse game. You know, you see a lot of players like choose to not swing at Black Yellow Luffy until they get to a certain point in their life, force them to use their own self-inflicting methods. So it's going to be a curious one to see and figure out how this mirror match kind of goes. I think I've done the mirror match once on the channel, so hopefully if you didn't see that one, the next one is going to be better than that. Not saying that the first one was bad, but before we go anywhere, let's look at some deck lists. And so here's the Bonney's list that they had in this game. Very nice deck list. We've seen the inclusion of Killer in these lists. Just a really nice, efficient blocker, and especially with like Eustace Captain Kidd, right? Being able to play that guy out on the field is just so nice at certain points. Your 2K set is couple Scratchman and Poos, the Ezo, right? And especially because you have a ton of non-counter bodies in the Basil Hawkins, the Hody Jones, Eustace Captain Kidd, Shanks, Doflamingo. That's a whopping, quick math, 18 cards that don't have counter on it in your deck. You're playing a couple copies of the zero cost event that has a really long name, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the zero cost event where you trash a card from hand and you get 3,000 power. So helps you out, especially when you're bricked up in your hand. Bonney definitely good, usually into Black Yellow Luffy, just some unfortunate draws at that point, but still a strong deck heading into especially the West in OP09 if you're interested in countering Black Yellow Luffy, because the West, if there's one thing that I do know, we love aggro decks and Black Yellow Luffy's. So let's take a look at Luffy's list. And so this is the Black Yellow Luffy's list, that one-legged toy soldier that we saw earlier being a one of in this deck. We've seen kind of Black Yellow Luffy lists go in a couple different directions, right? In the past couple videos that we've showcased this archetype, we've seen a lot of them play Hyogo, a very common card in these decks, but this one not opting for the Hyogo. Instead, like I mentioned, playing that one-legged toy soldier instead of potentially a Makino, right? Usually alongside the Flampe and Hiyori, we usually see at least 1 or 2 2Ks of Makino in the deck. Opting for the one-legged toy soldier instead to get that extra minusing effect that I talked about, to synergize well with stuff like the Luffy. Also kind of synergizes in some instances if it sticks with the 9-drop Kaido being a 2 of in this deck. We didn't see it in this game, but Kaido being very nice to not only get around in the mirror match, right? Because Kaido has that activate main of trashing a character, which can trash a Sabo, right? A blocker Sabo that has that protection ability, because it only prevents KO effects, not trash effects. Those being 2 different keywords in the One Piece trading card game, if you don't know. Still playing a one of the Ivankov, though. The Kaido is also probably pretty good into something like the Blackbeard matchup, right? Having an activate main on this character gives it some flexibility to be able to trash some different key pieces like Jesus Burgess, right? A great card that also can't be KO'd by effects in that matchup. So could help you out a little bit there. Very interesting list. I'm excited to see the finals and how maybe this one, in comparison to a different style, right, of Black Yellow Luffy, matches up against each other. Do these kind of tech choices matter? Because if I had to take a guess, I don't think the other Black Yellow Luffy player is playing one-legged toy soldier and Kaido. If they are, they're on the same team probably. But that's going to be it. thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, subscribe if you want to make sure that you don't see the finals when we do our unique English commentary on that, or maybe in the next tournament. I believe it's the Aichi Championships that are happening next. When I do a Dueling Guard playmat giveaway, I'll do shipping worldwide and whatever, does not matter to me. But appreciate everybody that joined me on this one. Make sure to stick around for more. I think I'm repeating myself, so I'm just gonna go ahead and end the video.